I thought that healing meant nothing hurts you. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Healed enough doesn't mean that I don't get triggered. Healed enough means that I just don't run from myself when I do. This is the BS4 podcast, and I'm your host, Bria Villa. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the BS4 podcast. I'm your host, Bria Villa. If you are new here, welcome to the party. If you have been a listener for some time, thank you for showing up always. I am so excited to get into today's episode because I've spent a lot of time reflecting on this topic, and this question has come up for me a lot. I've been asking myself lately, am I healed enough? Am I healed enough to love again, to trust myself, to be seen? And I think that this is a question that a lot of us wrestle with, is like, am I actually healed enough? Like, have I done the work? Have I come a long enough way in my healing journey to where I can try things again? So this episode is for a version of me who thought healing was a finish line, who thought healing and being healed was the destination, and realizing that healing is a journey and it's a continual one. And so this episode is also for anyone who is asking themselves the same question: am I healed enough? And I feel like that question is kind of asking yourself, am I to a point where I actually deserve what I've been craving? Am I to a point where I actually deserve the good things, or I'm ready for the good things that I maybe didn't think I was ready for in the past? And so today's episode is really for those who have cared enough to go on a healing journey, or are starting your healing journey, or you've asked yourself the same question of if I am healed enough. So today, the B is for being. Literally just being. Being present, being you, being authentic in this moment, and being honest with yourself in your journey right now. But also just being. Like, no expectations, no pressure, just being, existing. That's it. I think with a new awareness on mental health and the importance of understanding your triggers and your trauma, and taking intentional time to heal the things that have hurt you from your childhood, from your relationships. That way you don't repeat the same patterns. We go through this, we have this acute level of awareness on how important it is to heal. But now kind of the loop, or like the toxic expectation that we've created for ourselves, is we're not allowed to try again until we're done healing. Or like this is like a expectation that we have, like, oh, I can't try this again or try that again until I've worked through it enough in therapy, or until I'm at a more evolved state of myself. But like, what does enough even mean? Like, what does healed enough even mean? And I was questioning this recently because I actually was in therapy for 3 years with 2 separate therapists, one that I kind of evolved from and then sought out a new one. I spent about 1.5 years with each therapist. And my therapist, my most recent therapist, actually sat me down at the beginning of this year and told me I graduated. And I was so proud because I was like, wow, we've done so much of the work that I've needed to do. And she felt like I was at a point where I no longer needed her. She felt like I was at a point where I've done so much of the work and I've brought such a level of self-awareness to myself, and I've been able to actually practice the tools that she's given me in therapy to navigate situations that my triggers come up and go through them more effectively than maybe I would have in the past. And so she felt like the work that we had to do together was done. And that was like such a proud moment for me, because there was a point in time where I literally thought that I could not go without therapy. I thought that I would always need to be in therapy in order to stay focused or stay on the track that I've been on. And it was really rewarding to hear her say oh no, you graduated. You literally graduated therapy. And it also scared me because I was it kind of put this pressure on me of, wait, so I'm healed enough to try things again? I'm quote unquote healed enough, meaning I didn't think that healing meant feeling. I thought that healing meant that I would never get hurt again. And that was a big realization for me lately, is that healing means you feel the things, but you know how to navigate them better. You get triggered, and instead of letting your triggers completely run your emotions and wreck your nervous system, you recognize them and then go through exercises to actually regulate your nervous system and not let it completely take over your emotions. It's you feel the things and you know how to feel them and navigate them. But in my head, I was being healed is all just, it'll never hurt me again. But I feel like that's a common misconception, and it's not reality. Being healed is feeling and figuring out how to navigate those feelings, not never being hurt again. And so there was a lot of moments in my life I started to think back where I delayed things in sake of, am I healed enough? I delayed connection. I delayed vulnerability. I delayed growth because I thought that I had to be this perfectly evolved version of myself. I thought that in order to be vulnerable, in order to create connections, in order to grow, I had to be perfectly healed. And healed meant no feelings. Healed meant it can't hurt me. When it's actually the opposite. You feel the things and you just know how to navigate them. And the truth is, I used to be so emotionally guarded. My entire life, showing emotion was not something that I felt like I could do, that I should do. And it was a defense mechanism for so long, which is wild because I'm such an empath, where I felt like I could help other people take on their emotions and navigate their emotions, but talking about mine, no. I could talk about other people's stuff all day long and lean in and help them bring out their vulnerability and work through things with them and have no issue doing that. But when it came to talking about my own, about my feelings, showing my emotions, absolutely not. Vulnerability brought out a visceral reaction in me. I wanted to vomit anytime someone asked me how I'm really doing, and I would if I had to actually share how I was doing. Crying in front of people, to me, I would have rather die. Showing any level of vulnerability for majority of my life was the most painstaking thing I could put myself through. To the point where when I was younger, I used to literally count how many times I would cry. And I remember I was 7 years old and I was crying because of something between my parents' divorce and how it impacted me and my brother. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember going to my room, hiding, and crying because I didn't want my mom to see, I didn't want my brother to see, and I viscerally remember in that moment crying and sitting there thinking, as a 7-year-old girl, I shouldn't be crying. No more crying. You're not allowed to cry. I'm telling myself this. You're not allowed to cry. Moving forward, don't let anyone see you cry. I remember telling myself that. And from that point on, I literally used to have pride in not crying. I created a scoreboard for myself of how long I could go without crying. What? I was a kid. Literally keeping score. I remember from that moment when I was 7 to a moment where I was 9. I literally cried again when I was 9, also in private. And I sat there and told myself oh, that's one time I cried on the scoreboard from when I was 7 to when I was 9. I went 2 years without crying. And I was a kid, a girl So like, of course I have emotions. Of course things are going to be tough. You slip, you fall, you hurt yourself. I wouldn't even cry. I would not even cry. The next time I cried from when I was 9 was like when I was probably 10, 11. And I remember, I literally remember this to a T. I was at basketball practice and I was playing with my team, and someone passed the ball to me really hard and it slipped through my hands and hit me in the stomach and knocked the wind out of me. And I remember in that moment literally telling myself, do not cry, do not cry, do not cry, even though I actually couldn't breathe. Like, it totally knocked the wind out of me. And like, everybody's probably experienced that to some extent. But as a kid, that's a moment where you just like let out, you start wailing, crying, it hurts, you're trying to catch your breath, all this stuff. Not only did I not cry, I didn't stop playing. And the whole time I'm like fighting tears and I'm pushing myself through practice and I'm acting like I didn't just get the wind knocked out of me when I literally cannot breathe. Because I was so scared of being vulnerable. Because I put this scoreboard on myself of like, how many times can you cry? And I literally was in my head like, I don't want to add another tally to that list. Like, that is how emotionally guarded I was. I remember my parents, when they got divorced, we moved to California when I was in 5th grade. And my dad still lived in Miami, and my mom and my stepdad moved us to Southern California. And I remember one time I was visiting my dad in Miami and coming home. And on the flight, my brother had been crying because he was sad to like leave my dad. And I was really sad to leave my dad. And like, that was just like a struggle a lot growing up. But I didn't want to not be strong for him. I was a kid. I was probably like 12, 13. And I didn't want to not be strong for him. So as he was crying, I was consoling him. I was making sure that he's okay as we're on the flight. And then I wait till he's done crying and asleep on my shoulder. And I'm on the flight literally like crying, but like hiding the fact that I'm crying. And I remember that was like my 4th tally or whatever it was. I'm not going to remember the exact amount of tallies, but this is just to put in perspective. Like, I never wanted my parents to see me cry. I never wanted my friends to see me cry. All the way up until the last like year of my life, like even all my friends now, they're like, Bria does not cry. Like, Bria crying? No. Like, you can ask any of my friends. There's videos of me with Braylon and Shekinah, and we're literally talking about how all the healing and stuff that we've done together, and out of the whole group and everything that we did, like, I was not the crier. And my friend Corinne, she literally says, like, you are so, like, she like gets excited when I cry because she's like, you literally never do it. And that's just because of like this emotional wall that I've built up for so long. And I felt like my worth was tied to being unbothered. Like, I felt like I had to be indifferent to everything, and that showing emotion was negative. And this was something that I had to unpack, obviously, in therapy. I say that to say I didn't think that healing meant feeling. I thought that healing meant nothing hurts you. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's accepting that things will hurt you, and you figure out how to navigate that effectively, and that it's okay to cry. It is okay to show emotion. It is okay to say that something hurt you. And so I think a lot of that stemmed from, I used to be afraid of burdening people. And I used to have this big fear of abandonment. And so me saying no, or me putting my foot down in situations, or sharing how things made me feel was like the ultimate no. And so I didn't set boundaries. I didn't speak up when someone hurt me. I didn't want to risk being too much. The truth is, I was scared that if I showed people how I felt, it would be too much for them and they would leave. I've always felt like that my whole life. That if I took up too much space, I wouldn't be loved. And that is sad. I say that out loud, and that is so sad. That I have the heart that I do and the empathy that I do, and I felt like there wasn't enough space for my emotions because I looked at everything that was going on around me and felt like there's so many people dealing with so many things, and I am this to them, that there's not enough room for me and how I feel. And if I did share how I felt, I was scared that people would leave me, that my emotions would be the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, how could I go to you when you have all these things going on and you have space for how I feel? And I think that deep down stems from I have to do things in order to deserve love, when I know that I just deserve love, period. But that was a hard thing for me to recognize growing up, and something that I had to heal from in therapy. Like, I remember writing my brother's eulogy and sitting there telling myself, do not cry. Do not get on that podium or whatever it is in front of all those people at his funeral and cry. Like, I literally sat there the whole night before reading over it, knowing the parts that would probably make me get choked up, and would practice fighting tears so that I wouldn't cry in front of all those people at my brother's funeral. Like, girl, it's so miserable. Like, and I just want to go back and like hug her. Like, I want to go back and hug that girl and be like, baby, it is okay. It is okay to cry. It is okay to feel emotions. These are things that you are real life dealing with. Your emotions are not too much for the right people. You are not too much for the right people. And I think I just wanted to be so liked, or I wanted to not be burdensome again. So to me, I just like put all my emotions, how I felt, on the back burner. But I want to pivot into saying, I now know that I've healed enough and will continue to keep healing. But this idea of enough, in the sake of enough, I know I've healed so much and come such a long way because I am not afraid to show emotion anymore. I'm not afraid to cry if I feel like crying. I've cried more now in the last 6 months, longer probably. I've cried more in the last like 6 months to a year than I've ever cried my entire life combined. Like, I'm not kidding. It's like all of a sudden I just like recognize that feeling these emotions, not all of a sudden, through therapy, through the inner work, through healing, that feeling these emotions is okay. And then all of a sudden the floodgates opened. I'm like crying over the littlest things, but I'm letting myself feel. And I love that I'm letting myself feel. Like, it's almost been rewarding for me. I'm like, oh my God, I can feel things. I can be vulnerable and I can feel things. Like, that is a big deal for me. And I've also been speaking up on my emotions and standing my ground and saying when things bother me, regardless of how it's going to make someone else feel. It is how I feel. And my feelings deserve room. They deserve to hold weight. And so I'm going to go more into what being healed enough actually looks like. But I want to say, the more I've been crying, the more I've been standing up for myself, the more that I'm allowing myself to feel, the more gratitude I have for myself in the healing journey that I've been on, because it means I'm actually feeling, which also tells me I'm alive. Now I cry regularly. I share how I feel. I stand in my truth, even if my voice shakes. That is not broken. That is healing. And I'm really proud of coming this far, honestly. So, what being healed enough actually looks like. Enough is a moving goalpost. You are the person who defines enough. And honestly, there will never be a point where you are fully healed. There are certain things that you can say you've healed from, but healing is a journey. It is not a destination. And I had to shift that. It's a hard shift to make, but you realize that it's like a practice, and every day you heal a bit more. It's like scars. I have this scar on my knee. This is a wild analogy that I just thought of. Not wild. I'm sure somebody else has used it. But I have this scar on my knee from when I was a kid. I was playing in the attic with my brother, and we were like playing with these little porcelain dolls, and the doll had like its finger cut off. And as him and I were like playing with the dolls, the doll like swiped my knee on the cut part and like cut a gash in my knee. And instantly it's like pain, it's bleeding, and you're having to put Neosporin on it every day and put a bandage on it, and it's uncomfortable, and like it's very fresh. It's like the beginning of the healing process. Now I still have a scar from it. Like I look at my knees and it reminds me of that journey, but it doesn't hurt anymore. The scar just is still there. And so I think of healing in that way, where there are things that you will heal from, but it doesn't mean that they just like completely disappear and you'll never feel that pain again. And so the scar is like a reminder of maybe the pain I once felt, and I no longer will feel that pain in that specific area again. But I am reminded when I look at it of the pain that I may feel in other areas and how I can navigate that and how I will heal from that too. And there will be a point where when the wound is really fresh, when it's bleeding, when it's in those first initial stages of healing, it's tough, it's hard, it's sore, it's tender, it stings. But then you look at the scar that I have from years ago and it no longer feels that way. And so you know that you'll get to a point one day, those things that are hard right now will not sting or hurt nearly as bad in the future. Preparing for this episode, I was taking voice notes on my phone to like just remember old things that maybe came up, or I do this a lot where I'll just like start to talk into my phone when I have random ideas. And one night, you know when you're like up late and your mind's kind of going and you're just like scrolling through your phone aimlessly, not like on social media, but just like through old memories or through your old notes or whatever. I was going through my old voice memos because I take a lot of them. And I scroll all the way to the bottom and I have voice memos from 2015, 2016, which is wild. And I had this voice memo from January 18th, 2016. And it's 30 minutes. And I was like, what is this voice memo? And so I go and I listen to it. And it is literally a voice recording. In 2016, I was in a relationship with my first boyfriend. And him and I did long distance. So he was in college somewhere else. This was my freshman year of college, but I started dating him when I was 17. So I started dating him like my senior year of high school. And we had a really good relationship the first year. And then after the first year, like things just went to shit. And typical young love, dumb shit, whatever. And then so I started listening to this voice memo the other night. And this randomly came up and I was like, damn, this is like a very serendipitous that I'm about to have record this episode. And I'm listening to this voice memo and I'm listening to the beginning of the end, to the first phone call that we really had where I knew that breaking up was on the horizon. But I loved this man. Like, I literally loved him. Like, this was like my first real, true, head over heels, puppy love type of situation. I was young, right? Like 2016, I was like 20-ish, 19. Girl, do the math right. What was I? Yeah, like 19, 20. And I'm listening to this girl cry and damn near beg this person to treat me the way I was once treated, to love me in the way that I loved them. And I remember in that moment, like going back, thinking, I will never get over this person. I will never love anyone the way that I loved him. I will never heal from this. Like, I thought he was the end all be all. I thought I was going to marry him. Girl. And I look back and I listen to it. Mind you, this was 10 years ago. So it's a long time ago. If I could go back and tell that girl, you will listen to the voice memo of you breaking up and hearing yourself cry and not feel a thing. You will not feel shit. I thought maybe listening to that would like trigger something in me or make me sad or blah, 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 blah. Girl, no. I feel not a damn thing. Nothing. other than pride. I have feelings. I have feelings towards it, but it's pride that I've actually healed from it. There was a point in my life where that wound was so deep, was so harsh, was so scabbed and stung and painful. And now it's like the scar on my knee. I'm like, I look at it and I know it exists, but I feel nothing. It's not sore to the touch. It's not hard to look at. I feel nothing. Not in like a I have no emotions way, in a I've literally just healed. That was a huge part of my life, but I'm so proud of how far I've come. When I tell y'all, I was listening to this and I was like, one, I'll never, ever behave like that again. I will never act like that again. There will never be a time in my life that I will let a man make me feel like that again. I promise you. But also, I am proud of the woman that I am because I picked myself up and I healed from that shit. I went 7 years after that relationship without being in a relationship again. Like, I knew how tough that was going to be for me to recover from, and I took the time to heal from it to where now it holds no weight to me. And I just like am so glad that I have that because I'm like, this is the shit that you overcame, girl. Like, you should be so proud of yourself. For real. And I am. I am so proud of myself. And so the version of me that would shrink to not take up space, the version of me that was afraid to show emotion to where it caught up to me in my relationship because I wasn't calling out the things that didn't make me feel right, is gone. She buried her. She's done. And now I'm proud of the woman I've become because I will never do that again. I will literally never do that again. And that's how I know that I've healed. Like, that is how I know that that healed enough idea exists presently in me. I've come a long way. So what being healed enough actually looks like is healed enough doesn't mean that I don't get triggered. Healed enough means that I just don't run from myself when I do. My triggers used to push me to a point where I would avoid. I have a little bit of like an avoidant attachment style where if I started to feel things, I would just be like, no feelings, distance. No feelings, I'm just gonna act like they don't exist. And when I would get triggered, I would just be like, nope, I'm not doing this. I already see where this is going. I already see the feelings it's about to make me feel. I'm about to get hurt. I'm out. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't get triggered. I thought it was like, oh, if I'm healed, I just won't get triggered anymore. No, babes, that's not how it works. I get triggered and I don't run from my feelings when I get triggered. I learned how to manage them. I had a situation come up recently where something that someone said to me triggered me. And my initial reaction in that moment was stop talking to them. Don't like it. They don't care. I'll care less. But I caught myself and I was like, no. This triggered you for a reason. This is a symptom, not the cause. What about this triggered you? And then express it to them. And how they react is not my responsibility. But it is my responsibility to share how I felt about it and not run from it. Like, I immediately was like, run from these feelings, run. And it was like, no, girl, stand in it. If you don't like it, say it. And if they don't like that you said it, that's not your problem. And thankfully, I go to have that conversation and I share with them how it made me feel and what I didn't like. And they received it wholeheartedly, received it without friction, received it without defense, and even leaned in and said, actually, something that you said kind of triggered me too. And then we talked through it. This person said, unspoken expectations lead to future resentments. And I was like, yes, clock it. Like, that is so true. And that's what my therapist tells me. And so it's like a mature person, a person who cares, or a person who has done the healing work too, is going to meet you there. And this honestly has nothing to do with them. They could have totally taken it the wrong way, but it's the fact that I stood in how I felt. I shared that I didn't like it and owned the fact that it triggered me instead of running from it. And that was huge for me, like way bigger than like that person probably even realized in that moment. And also bigger than what I realized in that moment. And then when I actually like took a second to reflect on it, I was like, damn, girl, great job, girl. Like, you did that. I'm proud of you. Like, that is healing. That is healed enough. Like, I didn't run from my triggers. I looked at them and I faced them head on. Period. And this is a small thing. Like, obviously there's going to be bigger things that are going to be harder, but the little wins are worth counting too. Healed enough is saying, let me pause instead of shut down. I am someone who just turns it off like a light switch. Instead of pausing, thinking about how it made me feel, and then deciding how I want to move through it. I speak now instead of shrinking. When usually I would just be like, bye, see ya. When in reality, like, that does me no justice. There's probably relationships, situations, friendships that could have been saved or handled better had I just stood in my feelings. And I talked about this on the episode of forgiveness and my relationship with my dad. Like, we maybe didn't need to go all that time without talking had I just owned how I felt. And being healed enough is not that I'm never scared. It's that I'm not allowing fear to be the loudest voice in the room anymore. I am not letting fear of my emotions, letting fear of being too much be the loudest voice in the room. I'm not letting it dictate how I act. I'm not letting it dictate my decisions. I'm not letting it dictate my future. Fear, there's no room for fear here. Like, yeah, things can be scary, but if it scares me, it's probably something that I need to push through. That's being healed enough. I look at it differently now. And so this idea of enough, baby, there will never be enough. There will never be a healed enough. There's more or less healed. And I'm in a place where I'm far more healed than I've ever been. But it's owning and recognizing my emotions and sitting with them and then standing on them. And also realizing when to let them pass. My emotions don't need to dictate my decisions. And that's a big thing too. Healing is saying, yeah, it makes me feel this way, but it doesn't mean I need to act on it. Yeah, it makes me feel this way, but I need to sit with these emotions myself instead of acting out of emotion, I need to sit with my emotion. That is a true place of healing that I'm really proud of having and getting to this point. Something that I want to call out about healing that I have done and fallen victim to is the shadow side of healing obsession. The shadow side is this healing perfectionism that we fall into, where we say, I'll do that once I've healed more. Have you said that? I will do this once I've healed more. But honestly, that's just fear in a nicer outfit. You're scared to do the thing. And so you're like, well, I just need to wait until I'm a little bit more healed. Obviously, sometimes there can be truth in that. There might be some things you need to work through, like maybe spend a little bit more time getting to know yourself and healing before you jump into a new relationship after you've come out of a toxic one or whatever the case is. But there can be a point where you use healing to delay your life because of the perfectionist in you. This is something I do. I'm like, again, am I healed enough to be vulnerable? Am I healed enough to grow? Am I healed enough to make connections? And it's delaying things because I'm fearful of being hurt. That's really what it is. And so I want to tell you that healing is not a prerequisite for joy. It's not. It's a companion to it. Healing is not a prerequisite for joy. It is a companion to it. You do not have to be 100% healed to experience joy in life. You can find joy in even things that trigger you and you figure out how to navigate. Like the example that I just talked about was so empowering for me. Yeah, I was triggered. Yeah, it stung a little at first, but how I overcame it was so much more rewarding than me just backing away and being like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. It was really powerful for me. So something I want to say is that you don't need to graduate healing to be worthy of love, to be worthy of softness, to be worthy of rest, or to be worthy of success. You are deserving of those things, period. Look at healing as a journey, not as a destination. So, if you're asking yourself, am I healed enough? Congratulations. You even asking yourself that question probably means that you're doing the work. And doing the work is enough. Full stop. Maybe you're not all the way there. Maybe you'll wobble sometimes. But if you're showing up with awareness, with softness, with truth, with vulnerability, and with a willingness to try, you're already walking in healing and you deserve the things that you desire. So don't let this idea of, am I healed enough, hold you back. Lean in, do the hard things, own your truth, because healing is a journey, not a destination. And I'm proud of you, and you should be proud of yourself for coming as far as you have, truly. I am proud of myself for coming as far as I have. I have never in my life been more self-aware, self-assured, and love myself more than I do in this season right now. Like, I am so proud of how far I've come. Little Bria, if I could look at her right now and talk to her and have a conversation with her, I really think she would be so proud of the woman that I've become. I think she would look forward to being who I am today. And that is a huge accomplishment in my book, one that I will take. A closing affirmation for you to say that can kind of center you, bring you back to self, and that you can put into the universe is, I may not be fully healed, but I am not hiding from myself. And that is more than enough to begin. I am proud of myself for how far I've come, and I am proud of myself for how far I will continue to go. Healing is an ongoing journey. It is not a destination, and I have come a long way. So I honor myself, I love myself, and I am so proud of the person that I am. So repeat that to yourself, write it down, put in the comments below what your favorite part of this episode was, what any of your aha moments were. But I honestly just wanted to be vulnerable, share a little bit more about my journey, and give you some encouragement, because healing is not linear. And there's ebbs and flows to this, but hopefully throughout today you saw ways to approach it, think about it, and see a vulnerable side of me in my journey. That being said, the B is for being. Just be. Just be you, be authentic, be present, and just be. That is it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. Share this with a friend who you think needs to hear this message. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me. Doing this is a part of my healing journey, and I appreciate you for going on the journey with me. So I hope you have an amazing day. I'm sending you all my love, and I will see you next week. Bye.